The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we think it can criminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Very glad you could join us, and sorry for being off the past couple of days. We were off for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, as we take all federal holidays off here. And then Tuesday, I had jury duty, which consisted of me going downtown, sitting in a room, and then being told to go home, because apparently somebody Googled me. Anyway, had to do my civic duty, so that's the way it goes. Thanks for being here. We've got such great stories to cover on today's show, and our guest on today's show is bringing one of them to us. It's John Payne from Show Me Cannabis. They're out there in the state of Missouri, where they're fighting hard to make Missouri one of the first southern states to legalize marijuana. They've dropped 13 bills to legalize marijuana by initiative. And we'll talk to John Payne about those and what the next steps are for legalization in the Show Me state. Also coming up on today's show, we got time for a radical rant. I'm going to give you a look at 10 of the most common fears being voiced about marijuana legalization in the mainstream media and give you the facts and sound bites you need to be able to shut them down. So stay tuned for that in the radical rant. Also today, we're going to go behind the headlines. Recent headline now from Governor Chris Christie. He's been talking about how in his inaugural address, he's going to end the failed war on drugs. We'll take a look behind the rhetoric to see what he really means by that. Also, we got time for our 420 radio news coming up right after the first break. We have headlines, of course, from President Obama and his comments this weekend about marijuana being safer than alcohol. We've got some terrible proposals in Illinois for their new medical marijuana rules. We've got our supporters in Georgia, our good friend Sharon Ravert, with fantastic poll numbers coming out of the state of Georgia. We've got a look at Louisiana and its incarceration for simple marijuana possession. And from the NFL, a great edition of Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel last night took a look at medical marijuana use in the NFL. We'll talk about that, and we'll take that into Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio. We've got a couple clips from the Real Sports interview. We've also got a hideous story out of Philadelphia with regard to stop and frisk and more coming up in our second hour Toker Talk Radio. Plus, today is Irie Wednesday, so Gordon Green's got a tune for us from Toots and the Maytals. We're going to have ourselves a good time, so stick around.
You cut people, you smoke trees till you get what you need now. Designer drugs and minted smokes to get through the day. You always get them so high.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, tokers and tokettes, Radical Russ here to introduce you to my friend Matt and all the staff at Lush LED Lighting. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. If you thought LEDs were meet the tech of today, Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Let's just say I appear at a lot of events with the masters of indoor horticulture, and the harvests I saw from Lush LED lighting were big, tight, sticky, and very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Double your rewards and lower your expenses with Lush LED lighting. You can get 420 Radio on the go with our Shoutcast stream for all internet-enabled media players. Go to rad-r.us/420shout or just click the Shoutcast icon below the live radio feed at 420radio.org. I'm Radical Russ Belville, and I want to thank you for listening to 420 Radio. We couldn't survive without you and our sponsors, and I'd like you to check out one of our prime sponsors, the National Cannabis Coalition. I've been working with NCC since June of 2012, and I'm proud to be part of the team they have assembled. National Cannabis Coalition is building the partnerships with reformers, lawmakers, and industry we need to be successful. Visit the National Cannabis Coalition website at nationalcannabiscoalition.com or the easier-to-remember ncc420.com. That's where you'll get the exclusive first look at my radical rants, as well as informative articles from the nation's top cannabis pundits. Visit ncc420.com today, and if you have your phone handy, text Russ to 420-420 to support NCC and 420 Radio. It's a free text message that helps us help you end adult marijuana prohibition. Learn more at ncc420.com, and thanks for supporting independent marijuana legalization public radio. This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014, brought to you by National Cannabis Coalition at nationalcannabiscoalition.com. I'm Russ Belville. President Obama lit up the marijuana reform movement this weekend when he told the New Yorker magazine that, quote, "I don't think marijuana is more dangerous than alcohol," end quote. This puts the president in agreement with 74% of the American people who told CNN the same thing. He also told interviewer David Remnick, quote, "As has been well documented, I smoked pot as a kid, and I view it as a bad habit and a vice, not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person up through a big chunk of my adult life." Obama also said, quote, "It's important for legalization in Washington and Colorado to go forward because it's important for society not to have a situation in which a large portion of people have at one time or another broken the law and only a select few get punished," end quote. President Obama did worry about the slippery slope of legalization, wondering, quote, "If somebody says we've got a finely calibrated dose of meth, it isn't going to kill you or rot your teeth, are we okay with that?" end quote. The CNN poll showed only 4% of Americans would support legal meth. Medical marijuana patients may be forced to choose their medicine or their gun. Under proposed rules for the Illinois medical marijuana program, a patient or caregiver may not possess a weapon, even if they have a state firearm identification card or even a concealed carry permit. Oddly, the state lobbyist for the National Rifle Association says the NRA takes no position on the issue of denying Second Amendment rights to sick people who use cannabis. Though the organization has taken positions fighting for the rights of blind people to hunt wild game and opposing closing the loopholes in background checks that allow felons and the mentally ill to buy at gun shows from private sellers. Other proposed regs include background checks for patients and caregivers that would exclude those convicted of violent felonies and drug felonies from using cannabis as medicine. There is no word from the NRA on their position on these background checks preventing felons from getting medical pot. Supporters of marijuana legalization in Georgia gathered at the state capitol in Atlanta to deliver a press conference announcing 62% support for decriminalization. Sharon Ravert, head of Peachtree NORML, explained how their phone survey showed majority support among Georgians for not treating marijuana use with arrest and incarceration, but that currently the group favors political action on the issue of medical marijuana. Republican State Senator Josh McCoon has proposed a committee to study medical marijuana legislation, and Republican State Representative Alan Peake will propose a bill that legalizes the CBD-only form of medical marijuana known as Aleppsia that has shown remarkable effect for children with epilepsy. Representative Peake was moved to act by the case of Haley Cox, a 4-year-old who suffers 100 seizures a day, and he believes Georgia's dormant 1980 medical marijuana law can be reactivated to include seizure disorders. Over 1,300 Louisiana residents are serving an average of 8.4 years in prison for simple marijuana possession, according to figures from the state's Department of Corrections revealed in a meeting of the House Committee on the Administration of Criminal Justice. 41 prisoners are serving terms greater than 20 years, and 10 people are serving life in prison, with African Americans making up over 78% of all those imprisoned for pot possession, according to Marjorie Essman, director of the Louisiana ACLU, as she told the committee. Despite these facts, lawmakers seemed only interested in discussing the possibility of medical marijuana legislation, hearing from Atasha King, who plans to move to Colorado to access high CBD oil for her daughter's epilepsy. One district attorney testifying explained, quote, "You have to conclude that marijuana, that THC, has some very bad characteristics. We do not need in Louisiana our workforce to be impaired any further," end quote. The only plan to address the criminalization of adult recreational use comes from State Representative Austin Baden, a Democrat who is again sponsoring a bill to reduce penalties for those arrested and convicted of marijuana crimes. And finally, former Denver Broncos receiver Nate Jackson told HBO's Real Sports that, quote, "Weed is the least harmful and least addictive of the painkillers players use to cope with the violent demands of the game, and no one ever overdoses from weed. The problem is pills and booze. A joint can alleviate the need for either," end quote. We will bring you more coverage of the growing realization of how medical marijuana can help the NFL in our Hour 2. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. You can get the transcripts of 420 Radio News exclusively at the National Cannabis Coalition. Visit ncc420.com for more details. When we come back, we'll go behind the headlines and take a look at the recent quote by Governor Chris Christie about ending the war on drugs. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the best way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, home of the famous lighter leash. Herb Age Designs, get your Herb Age t-shirts and hoodies and show your pride. Herb Age Designs, we've got frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com and follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. We'll see you at this year's Hemp Fest. Crank it up!
Cannabis Network Radio, starring David Kowalski from Tampa, Florida. Thursdays at 8 a.m. Pacific on 420radio.org.
Welcome back, everybody. 15 hour after the hour, and time for us to go behind the headlines. And I want to look at the recent inaugural statement by Governor Christie. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie did make headlines again, and this time without messing up anyone's commute. At his inaugural, Christie said, quote, "We will end the failed war on drugs that believes that incarceration is the cure of every ill caused by drug abuse," end quote. Oh, really? Really? Aren't you the same Governor Chris Christie who last month, when asked about expanding the state's severely restrictive medical marijuana law, just to let epileptic kids import high CBD oil from Colorado to deal with, Dravet syndrome, that was all they want to do, just to expand it just that little bit, just not even THC, just extract of oil. You said, quote, "I am done expanding the medical marijuana program under any circumstances," end quote. Remember that just a month ago? Your big worry was that people advocating for this edible extract of cannabis oil for Dravet syndrome, this extract that can't get anyone high, you were worried that that was a backdoor way to legalize marijuana. And you said, quote, "They're not getting legalization under this governor, not on my watch," end quote. So, if we're not getting legalization and we're not getting expansion of medical marijuana and you're going to end the war on drugs, what the hell exactly are you going to do, and where does that leave us recreational pot smokers? Well, look behind the headline. Christie followed up his "end this failed war on drugs" with the caveat, quote, "We will make drug treatment available to as many of our non-violent offenders as we can," end quote. Aha, yes. Keep the drugs illegal, keep the police power to intimidate, harass, intrude, search, seize, arrest, book, and throw in a holding cell, but the end result's not a steel cage, right? That's the deal. Instead of going to a steel cage, we go to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting 3 times a week, do some community service, and get regular urine testing backed by the threat of a steel bar cage, right? Or maybe it's just a citation and a large fine with an appearance before a judge who then sentences you to all that rehab, right? Sorry, we've heard this before. In 2009, drug czar Gil Kurlikowski told the Wall Street Journal, quote, "Regardless of how you try to explain to people it's a war on drugs or a war on a product, people see a war as a war on them," end quote. And of course, since that point, there's been more DEA raids of medical marijuana dispensaries than there were under 8 years of George W. Bush. Yeah, never mind those well-armed federal agents smashing your store and seizing your assets because, quote, "We're not at war with people in this country," end quote, according to Gil Kurlikowski. The simple fact is this: the war on drugs cannot end until the use of drugs is no longer a crime. And there is hope of it ending. President Obama has directed the Justice Department to allow the legalization in Colorado to move forward. And in this interview he gave this weekend, he said those 2 states' laws were, quote, "important for society not to have a situation in which a large portion of the people have at one time or another broken the law and only a select few get punished." Of course, he also said he didn't think marijuana was more dangerous than alcohol. But now, the president's press secretary, Jay Carney, is walking back some of those statements. Carney explained that when the president said pot is less dangerous, quote, "in terms of its impact on the individual consumer," end quote, than alcohol, he really only meant that we've been disproportionately arresting minorities because we've enforced our drug laws in a way that's been counterproductive. Maybe someone at the DEA complained that stating that marijuana is safer than alcohol kind of makes it difficult to defend scheduling marijuana as a deadly dangerous drug like heroin with no medical value. Only legalization ends the war on drugs. Medical marijuana doesn't go far enough. Ask the raided dispensaries in California and Washington, the shuttered dispensaries in Montana and Michigan, and the desperate patients in states still without access. Decriminalization doesn't go far enough. Ask the imprisoned growers in Oregon and Ohio, the harassed urban youth in New York City, and the dead traffickers in Mexico. So long as marijuana is a contraband item, Even if possessing a small amount of it is merely a ticket, the war on drugs continues. We've merely de-escalated the conflict. The smell of it is still reason for police to harass citizens. The trade in it is still prohibited, and that is where the violence lies. The use of it is still opposed by government force. Anything less than political support for legalization isn't ending the war on drugs. It's repackaging it to appease the 93% of voters who believe the war on drugs has failed. And not only did they lose the war on drugs, they lost it to a bunch of potheads. They'll never learn. They're prohibitionists. If they learned, they'd have learned in 1933.
Ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm a reefer smoking man.
Wood Pipe Smoke Shop and Speakeasy is your source for cannabis community gear in southern Wisconsin. Owners Brian and Tammy Wood are located in Kendall, just outside of Madison, and they've got everything for the smoking enthusiast, including a full assortment of pipes, water pipes, hookahs, bubblers, one-hitters, and so much more. They're open noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and can help you with your detoxification therapies as well. Call 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com for more information. That's 608-466-7473 or email woodpipes@yahoo.com. And as always, go pack go.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420.
In the afternoon, if I'm home, I smoke marijuana.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Oh, marijuana. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I got my ganja.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And if you're one of the 26 million Americans who smoked marijuana last year, you need to get involved in the drive to legalize marijuana. We need your help to stop the senseless arrest of more than 800,000 Americans each year on marijuana charges. Together, we can end marijuana prohibition and stop the arrests of marijuana smokers. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
Welcome back, everyone. 24 after the hour, and we're joined via Skype all the way from Spain by our music editor, Gordon Green's on the line. How you doing, Gordon?
Hey, I'm doing great, Russ. How are you?
Oh, you sound great. This is amazing, the technology we got that allows us to communicate all the way across the Atlantic like this.
Skype is wonderful, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing. Hey, I also wanted to commend you on your Mediterranean episode this morning. I listened to that, and it got me in a very, very good mood for writing.
Great, man. Glad to hear it. Gotten some great comments about it so far, and hope to keep it up, and love to hear what listeners think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Visit our contact page, folks, at 420radio.org/contact, and you can send your comments in, and I'll forward them to Gordon because he's putting together these world music shows. We've done Mediterranean, we've done Brazilian, we've done, what was your first show?
First show of the month is always Intro to World Music, kind of a jukebox of well-known world music artists, past and present hits from around the world.
Yeah, loving it. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, and we got replays. I believe it's Friday 1 in the morning and Saturday 1 in the afternoon, or something like that.
That's right. And I want to remind people that they can go to the Gordon Green Music Planet page and stream the show from last week anytime you want. It's on demand, and it's up each week for 1 week, and then the next show will come up only one show at a time, but give people a chance to listen to it if they've missed it.
All right. Well, tell us about our song for today's Every Wednesday break.
Today going with some legends, Toots Hebert and the Maytals. They've been around for more than 50 years now. Toots is more than 70 years old, still playing shows. I think it was a couple of months ago, something happened. I think he got hit with a bottle at a concert or something like that, and they've canceled all their shows after that, and I think they're taking a look at the state of the concert scene, so to speak. Anyway, this is a song from 1975 that was produced by producer became famous with Bob Marley, Chris Blackwell, and this is called Reggae Got Soul. It went almost, well, it made the top 10 in 1975, and just shut up and let you hear it. It's Reggae Got Soul, Toots and the Maytals.
Thank you, Gordon. Looking forward to the next Music Planet. Talk to you next time.
Peace out.
Reggae got soul, got so much soul. Reggae got soul, got so much soul. One time, listen to the beat, move it and sing, yeah. Reggae by the line, yeah. Move it time.
Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
I'll say, little red carpet, darling, you're much too fast. Little red carpet, you need a lover that's gonna lay.
Are you or is someone you know a marijuana smoker? Have you or is someone in your family been arrested for a marijuana violation? You need to know the truth about pot. NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is the most comprehensive source of information regarding marijuana and its effects on health, as well as legal issues. NORML even offers a database of lawyers specializing in cannabis in your area. NORML, the nation's largest and most successful marijuana law reform organization, has spent decades gathering the knowledge and science on everything related to cannabis. NORML is the best resource to find out the truth about marijuana, connect with a lawyer in your area, or help find an end to prohibition. Information is available at norml.org, that's NORML.org, or toll free at 888-67-NORML.
Hemp Radio with Patty Cakes from Orange County, California, every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. GMT on 420radio.org.
Reforming America's prohibition laws cannot happen without relentlessly and directly engaging our lawmakers and other elected officials. The Russ Belville Show keeps you on top of all the latest developments at the federal, state, and local level with our government at work.
Welcome back, everyone. 32 after the hour, and joining us by telephone from Missouri, we have John Payne, the Executive Director of Show Me Cannabis. John, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Russ?
Doing fantastic. Glad to have you on the line because there's a lot of stuff going on in Missouri that we got to cover. And I think right out of the gate, I want to talk about all these legalization, these different initiative bills that were dropped out there at the state legislature, or at the AG's office, I should say, that got approved. Can you give us a little more details on that?
Sure. Back in the beginning of December, we turned in a number of different initiatives. They're not all that different from each other. They have mostly a few small changes that we want to poll test on to see which changes are most popular, which variation is most popular with the people of Missouri. But they were approved by the Secretary of State's office last week, and we got what I think is good ballot language back. I'm a big fan of the fiscal note, which says that at least on the ones where the tax is fixed at the level that Colorado has it fixed at 25%, that it would have could be upwards of $217 million in tax revenue for the state of Missouri, and I'm very happy with that estimate, and I think it's fairly accurate.
Regarding these 13 different initiatives that have been placed here, and you say there's, they tweak this thing or that thing, is there anything about them that is in common as far as they all have, any specific thing that isn't variable?
Yeah, I would say, the vast majority of all the measures is the same. And so the biggest and most important thing is that they all legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis for adults 21 years of age and older in the state of Missouri. So that is the common feature. And there's the only things that really vary is that the amount of plants that you are allowed to home grow, the way that expungement is handled, and there are a few that don't have any expungement at all. Our preference would be to, expunge all records for nonviolent cannabis-only offenses. But we know that is an issue that is going to be more controversial with the people than probably just legalizing and regulating would be. And the final variable is the way the taxes are handled. In some of them, the legislature is allowed to set the tax within a certain range, and then in others, the tax is just set at 25%. But there's an amendment in the Missouri Constitution that says that the legislature can't change the taxes without a vote of the people. So if we were to put that in there, we'd have to create an exception of that amendment, and that there is opposition to that idea. So I think we may just stick with the set tax.
Okay. And on the home grow issue, all 13 contain some level of home grow. None of them take it down to zero.
I think there are a couple that take it down to zero, but again, I think we mostly want to just see how that will the people feel about that. But our preference is definitely to allow home growing, and I think we mainly lean towards just sort of emulating what Colorado has done there again, because it's easy to say, hey, look, here's what Colorado's doing. They've been doing it for over a year now, because home growing and possession and use and home grow have been legal since 2013, and so it's very easy to look to Colorado and say, that's been working for a year now. No major problems there that have been reported with home growing. So why not emulate that system?
Right. Okay. We're speaking with John Payne from Show Me Cannabis in the state of Missouri. And if people want to know more about these things and contact you guys, what is your website and Facebook they could get to?
They can go to showmecannabis.com on the website, and then on Facebook, it's, I think, Show Me Can Reg, R-E-G, because the political action committee is called Show Me Cannabis Regulation. And then there's also a text code, which is you can text in, and I believe you also use that. You can text SMC for Show Me Cannabis to 420-420.
Excellent. So I understand that the strategy here is to drop, these 13 different pieces of language. Then you can poll on them and kind of find out, which variances in the language get the most support. Do you have poll language already? And what kind of support does this show for generic legalization? And do you expect it to increase or decrease with these different bills?
We expect it to increase, but we did polling in September of 2012, before Colorado and Washington voted to legalize. And that polling showed that 50% of Missourians favored legalizing, taxing, and regulating cannabis in a manner similar to alcohol. 45% opposed, and then 5% undecided. And then when they were informed of supporting and opposition statements, it rose to 54% support, 45% opposition, and almost all the undecided came over to support. But that was, the numbers have jumped tremendously nationwide since then. According to the Gallup poll, there's been a 10-point jump, and pretty much all the polls now are showing majority support. And so we're going to hopefully see that reflected in our poll that we'll probably have results back around the beginning of February, and if that's the case, we're hoping to see support around 60%, because that's, it only takes 50% plus one to pass it, but there are margins of errors with these polls, and you also have to consider that support may go down. It's been a very good month for people who support legalization. We've had a lot of big news stories coming out. Things have seemed to go well in Colorado. President Obama saying what I think everyone already knew, that cannabis is no more harmful than alcohol, perhaps less harmful. But nonetheless, so the numbers could ebb somewhat, and you don't want to be in a position where if support goes down just a little bit, that you're then losing the election. You want it to be a pretty sure thing. So that's what we're hoping for, is 60% support.
All right. So coming this February, we'll get some numbers out. You get your 60% support. The goal then is to place something for initiative voters in 2014 election in November.
Yes, it would be to go out and gather, if our support's there, then we want to go out and gather about 160,000 signatures from registered Missouri voters and put it on the ballot for November. And it's kind of a short time horizon, but we do have a lot of very excited volunteers. Our volunteer form has been so busy, in fact, in the last week, that several times people were unable to access it because there was just too much traffic going through there.
How is the funding situation for such a drive? I know the national groups are looking at funding, Alaska and Oregon and perhaps something in California. Is there enough money in the pot to go around?
Well, that is a good question. That is something that we will have to, we'll have to see exactly how much is out there. But we do have a fair amount of support coming from within Missouri, and we hope that, if we can show with polling that it's viable, that it's also something that I know that a lot of people are interested in at the national level. We don't have any necessarily people who have said, if you if you poll at this level, we're going to give you $500,000. But that is something that we're hoping to we're working with some of the national players like Drug Policy Alliance to hopefully show them and their funders that, hey, we can do this in Missouri, and that will send a very powerful message to the nation as a whole. So you might want to consider giving us some money to do that.
All right, we hope that happens. And John Payne, last time we had you here on the show, we were actually streaming your coverage, the coverage of your debate that you had, the Great St. Louis Legalization Debate, for which I live tweeted some information out. What was the reaction from that? How did that turn out for you after the debate?
It turned out really well. Actually, we got a lot of great media coverage out of it. It was on three local news stations that evening, and a lot of the people that came up to me after the debate were people that were undecided or even a little bit leaning against, but said that they appreciated what I had to say and agreed with me. They weren't totally sold on the idea of legalization, but they said, "Yeah, I understand these laws need reform." In fact, one of them was a person who worked in narcotics in the St. Louis metro area, and so he had the same profession as the guy I was debating, who is the president of the Missouri Narcotics Officers Association, but he had a more reform-oriented approach than Mr. Grellner, and he wasn't totally supportive of legalization, but he was open-minded, and I think that's representative of how this debate is going, as more people are changing their minds, and all the people that change their minds are pretty much coming over to our side.
All right. I think you did excellent in that debate, and it really highlighted, a lot of the differences. And I think for people that listened with an open mind, they could see the bankruptcy of prohibition in Grellner's comments. One last thing, one of the stories we followed in Missouri was the story, and I'm sorry for forgetting his name, of the man who's serving life in prison there in Missouri. Can you give us any updates on that?
I can give you, his name is Jeff Mazansky, and yeah, he's been in prison for nearly 20 years now and is sentenced to life without parole. There's not a whole lot of updates on it. We continue to work on trying to get him freed. Basically the only, our initiatives, with the ones with full expungement, if they pass, then that would allow him to be freed, and so that's one possible avenue, and I personally think that's the most likely one. The other avenue is Governor Nixon granting him clemency, but he has so far, basically refused to even comment upon Jeff's case, and that's terribly unfortunate. But this governor has kind of made a reputation for himself of being someone who shies away from controversy, which is, politically convenient for him, but doesn't make him a very good leader.
Yeah, what a shame. And well, we hope that you get some good results back on the expungement one, because that's something that I know California Cannabis Hemp Initiative has an expungement and release and pardons and all sorts of things built into it. But for the most part, when these bills go forward, they go forward with the future in mind, legalizing marijuana for the future, but forget about those people in the past who now have to sit in a cell while it's legal in Colorado and Washington. Some of the things that they were doing, they got them put in a cell. So I want to thank you for thinking of that.
Hey, no, that's my pleasure, and I think that's actually a very key element to this whole thing.
All right. Well, John Payne, Executive Director of Show Me Cannabis, folks. If you want to get involved, check out showmecannabis.com or showmecanreg on Facebook, and they can help you out, get involved. They're just building more and more volunteers. Do you have any events coming up that we need to plug before we let you go?
Well, for those people who are in the Columbia, Missouri area, we do have a trivia night coming up on the 30th. So that's next Thursday at the Blue Note.
All right. Check that out. I'm sure the information's on showmecannabis.com, right?
Yep.
All right. Thanks, John Payne, for joining us, and thanks for all the great work you're doing there in Missouri.
Thank you, Russ. Have a good one.
All right. I love it. I love that we got activists in Missouri and Georgia and Florida that are just beginning to make not only waves in their state, but beginning to get heard in the national media. The wall is crumbling, people, state by state. When we come back, we'll have time for a radical rant. Top 10 legalization myths debunked.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com. You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420radio.org.
Hi, I'm John Bon Jovi, and I've been given a script to talk to you about drugs, rock and roll, having fun, a good time, and all that good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, drugs is not a part of my everyday routine. It's not everyday fun. It's not good for you. All right, so listen, think twice before you do drugs, because there ain't no winners out there doing it.
Okay?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
I think we're parked.
Take a little trip. Take a little trip. Take a little trip.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant. 10 marijuana legalization fears beat by the facts. You know, the next time you're in that conversation with the person who's discussing marijuana legalization, you can deliver these knockout statistics to shut them up. You know, we're hearing so much now, the president saying marijuana is safer and states all over the place looking to legalize. Columnists and op-ed writers and letters to the ed writers are pretty much saying the same stuff, the same 10 fears about marijuana legalization. I'm here to help you debunk those. Let us begin. Number 1, legal pot will target kids. Sorry, the fastest growing demographic of marijuana smokers in the 21st century is people over the age of 50. Barely 1% of the AARP eligible people, that's over 50, right, smoked pot monthly at the start of the 2000s. That figure's over 3% today, and in raw numbers, monthly silver tokers have tripled since 2000. Kids will think pot is okay. Sorry, in the beginning of the 2000s, there were 3.9 million kids aged 17 or younger who smoked pot that year. In 2012, that figure dropped to 3.3 million. Meanwhile, annual tokers over age 50 more than doubled from 1.7 million to 4.7 million. Number 3, teen use will skyrocket. Nope, sorry. The greatest teen use was in 1979 when 31% of high school seniors had tried illegal in all 50 states pot. Sorry, illegal in all 50 states pot. Today, with 20 medical marijuana states and 2 legal states, only 17% of 12th graders have tried pot. Number 4, productivity will suffer. Ah, yes, the workplace productivity thing. 55% of the people who have never smoked marijuana work full or part-time. But 70.6% of the people who have smoked pot are working full or part-time. And I know that's just, have you ever smoked pot? But even if we look at monthly pot smokers, people who are smoking pot this month are more likely to be employed, 64% of them, than people who didn't smoke pot this month, a little less than 62% of them. We are hardworking people. All right, let's go to, what is this, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The roads will be full of stoned drivers. No, sorry, that's not true. During the annual 2-week national DUI crackdown that happens between mid-August and Labor Day, police in Washington state nabbed fewer people for DUI than the year before legalization, and more of the drivers that they did catch were under the state's new legal limit. And in Colorado, just 13 out of the 359 DUI cases in the Denver metro area were for marijuana. 13 out of 359. And accident fatality rates are down in Washington and Colorado, and at a greater rate than the national average. Number 6. Today's pot is 7 times stronger. Sorry, no, there's always been great weed. Today it's just easier to come by. The average potency of marijuana seized has increased by about double. But why are we worried, and why are we supposed to fear a 10% to 30% THC bud when 100% THC pills called Marinol have been legal since the 1980s? Number 7. Marijuana addicts are filling rehabs. Well, no. People caught smoking pot are filling rehabs because a judge forces them there. Over half of the people in rehab for marijuana alone were sent there by the criminal justice system, while only 1 in 7 chose to enroll themselves in rehab. And as for these addicts, well, about over half of them smoked pot less than once a week the month before they went to rehab. And over a third of them, 37%, didn't smoke any pot in the month before they went to rehab. Number 8. Legal pot will target minorities. Really? Really? More than law enforcement targets minorities? There are twice as many white monthly marijuana smokers, 12.7 million of us, than all other races and ethnicities combined, 6.3 million. Number 9. What's next? Legalized meth? Yeah, even President Obama went this far. What if we had a dose of meth that was carefully calibrated? What's next? Legalized meth? Well, it's kind of doubtful. In that latest CNN opinion poll, they showed 88% support for medical marijuana, 84% support for decriminalized marijuana, and 55% support for legalized marijuana. But that same poll only showed 4% support for legalized meth. And it also had 4% support for legalized cocaine and 3% support for legalized heroin. And number 10, legal pot will drive up social costs. Yeah, that's the old Sabbath conjecture. If we legalize pot, it's going to drive up the costs because, alcohol and tobacco combined only raise $40 billion in taxes, but they cost $400 billion in social costs. So we can't legalize marijuana because it's safer than both of those and costs much less than those. And in fact, a 2002 Canadian study found that a smoker costs $822 a year in social costs. A drinker costs $165 a year in social costs. And a pot smoker costs $20 a year. $20 a year. That pot cost, by the way, is under prohibition, so we're taking in no taxes to offset it. Don't you think we can collect $20 in taxes per year from a legal pot smoker? These are some of the arguments you're going to hear coming from the prohibitionists in the next couple of years, just next couple of months for sure, over the next couple of years, definitely, as they fight to hold on to keeping marijuana illegal. And at the heart of all their fight is it's really a social fight. It's really a social fight. It's about culture. It's about, for many of them who are older, how the symbolism of marijuana is tied to anti-Americanism, tied to Vietnam War protesters, tied to the left wing, tied to young people with long hair. It's culturally ingrained in these people. And it makes it hard for them to be able to see the facts that are before them and to see the popular support for this change in this issue. You'll get people who are dyed-in-the-wool, libertarian-minded, laissez-faire capitalists, people that believe that the government should stay out of people's business and let businesses be deregulated, that cannot apply that to the business of marijuana. That cannot, just because of cultural ingrained reasons. They cannot switch that logic over to the markets that are involved with recreational drugs and recreational marijuana use. And it's just becoming impossible for them to hold on to that. You see the bankruptcy in their position when you ask them, well, if what you're saying about prohibition works so well, why don't we apply it to alcohol and tobacco that are so much more harmful? And they will keep coming back with the response that, well, those two drugs are too culturally ingrained. We tried alcohol prohibition. It didn't work because alcohol's been with our society for so long. It's been such a part of our culture. Smoking's been around for so long. There's no way we could get rid of it. Which basically tells us that the way we are treating marijuana has nothing to do with how safe it is. It has to do with its cultural acceptance. If it were only more culturally accepted, used longer by greater numbers of people, then it should be legal. Well, by their own logic, it is becoming legal because more and more people have been using marijuana since it was made illegal in 1937, which right there shows you the bankruptcy of their position. Keeping marijuana prohibited at a federal level and at the state level in all the states has done nothing to stop or slow the numbers of people who have tried it and continue to use it. We're at the point now where we've got 26 million people who are using marijuana every year, 17 million of them. And I'm only counting adults, so you may hear different numbers, but that always comes from a 12 and older survey. I only count people 18 and older. We've got 17 million adults, voting age adults that are using marijuana every month. There are more adult marijuana smokers than are Texans in this country. So if it indeed is just a cultural issue, if it indeed is just a matter of how many people have used it and how culturally accepted it is, then the prohibitionists have already lost. It's only a matter of signing the new laws. Thanks for joining us for Hour 1 here. Stay tuned for Hour 2. Toker Talk Radio, I've got this horrendous story of a young man who was stopped and frisked in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've also got video from Sharon Ravert and the Peachtree Normal people on the news in Atlanta, and a little bit from that NFL Real Sports, plus the DEA's chief of operations freaks out over marijuana legalization. Stay tuned for Toker Talk Radio. For Brian the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.